Hello and welcome to our special show where we'll talk about MSMEs in COVID-19, a crash or an opportunity. As the coronavirus upends the economy, small businesses have been the worst hit. MSMEs are facing a double-edged sword of health crisis combined with an economic crisis. The lockdown has not only impacted life but also businesses, with no sign of ease in business or recovery of the economy in short terms. This has caused worry among many small and medium-sized business owners. Although government has introduced a relief fund for MSMEs and an idea of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Beyond that, keeping current scenario in mind, we'll find out how things can turn up into MSME sectors, how COVID-19 will affect MSMEs. Will it be a crash or we can turn it into an opportunity? And to talk about it, we have a group of eminent personalities, which includes Dr. Sanjeev Black. He's the Executive Secretary of WASME. Welcome, sir. And we have Dr. D.K. Joshi. He's the Chief Economist of CRISIL. We have Prabir Roy. He's a co-founder of Paymet. Mr. Sudhanshu Tiwari. He's a Joint Commissioner, Industry of Uttar Pradesh. I welcome you all, sir. Dr. Sanjeev, I'll start with you. First of all, I would like to have an opening remark about this whole national lockdown situation where world economy is suffering right now. So what are your readings about this?
COVID-19, it has already suffered lots of MSMEs. If you're just
Yes,
talking about the MSME, they are the backbone of any country's economy. They contribute to 30% of the GDP and creating 70 to 80% of the employment.
right,
And whenever we are just talking about the industry as when MSME industry, they have it's 98%. 2% is the Tata or Ambani Adani. And if you are just talking about their contribution to the economy, it is immense. And they have hit hard right now. Indian MSMEs means micro one. They are the single one or one person industry or a company. They have been already means suffering from lots of issues like delayed payment. They are having the marketing activities over there, issuing the activities, labor shortage, and other so many issues over there. In this COVID-19, uh, they have been already hit hardest, and we have already talking to the government of India so that they can give some stimulus, and they have already provided them the stimulus of 3 lakh crore package that will help them in boosting the economy over there and also revive the means that sector. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Sudhanshu, UP approximately have 90 lakh MSMEs. So how this lockdown affected them?
At the total scenario in the last 60 odd days, they'll find out that there were lots of issues in the MSMEs in UP. But the way the government of UP has been able to tackle the situation from day one, it has been a meticulous planning from the government. And as we see that there were planning at the level, higher level, at the middle level, at the district level, and at the village level. So initially what we did, we started off with the idea that how the industries, they should not close down. And the 11 kinds of industries that were opened by the government, we ensured that they worked all the time. Secondly, we also ensured that the labor which were trying to migrate, we ensured that the labor stayed back. Thirdly, we ensured that the kind of inputs that the industry that really required, we were able to provide that. Fourthly, the logistic support that was needed by the MSMEs, I think the government took a great step, and the industry's officers, they worked day and night to ensure that the passes were issued for the vehicles, for the workers, and we also ensured that the labor stayed back in the industries and the work was not at all affected. So in this way, we ensured that even in the periods of lockdown, the industry worked at the best that was possible.
And Mr. D.K. Joshi, this would be the, I guess, this would be the fourth recession India is facing right now. And Just first you tell us like how it is different from the previous ones and what is your outlook for 2020 and 21.
Well, I think India is facing this COVID-19 crisis on a very weak immunity level. What I mean by that is GDP growth for 2019-20 came in at 4.2%, which is the slowest since the global financial crisis. In nominal terms, which is more relevant for the corporates, the GDP growth was 7.2%, which is the slowest since 1971-72. On top of that, the fiscal stress is quite high. And you also have the financial sector going through its own motion. So I think overall, we were not very well prepared to face this crisis. Now, as you rightly pointed out, this is the fourth recession that India will face. The first three recessions that India faced were primarily agriculture led. At that time, agriculture used to be 50% of GDP almost, and any hit to the monsoon, any hit from the monsoons to agriculture, which was largely unirrigated, would create a recession. This time around, agriculture is expected to do well, but the non-agriculture sectors, particularly industry and services, I think they are going to sink quite sharply. And agriculture is only 15% of GDP. It doesn't have the muscle to pull the economy up, even though we expect it to grow at 2.5%. For this year, we expect minus 5% GDP growth, which will be the slowest since 1979-80. And this will lead to some sort of a loss of GDP would be approximately 10%, and which is equal to about 20 lakh crores.
And Mr. Probert, the condition that our economy is in today, how do you see this? And is it a crisis or an opportunity? What is your reading?
Crisis and opportunity is like a glass half full. So, what is crisis for someone is an opportunity for someone else, and one has to be optimistic and not pessimistic. So, we always look that it's an opportunity for business and industry to reinvent and reimagine and reset themselves to take on the new challenge. Having said that, I heard Dr. Joshi saying that while agriculture has always been a buffer for us for the last four recessions, this time around, that while it's still very much there as a backstop, going forward, the role of industry and services, including manufacturing, cannot be less important. And I think, as Dr. Layak said, that MSME is the backbone or the lifeline or the trunk of the Indian economy, which 90% of all people who work in India work in MSMEs. So we cannot wish that MSME will somehow have to look after themselves. They are going to be the prime driver, or rather, they will need to be the prime driver to come back and revive the economy so that we try and go somewhere near the nominal growth that Dr. Joshi was saying, 7%. So yes, it's certainly a crisis. We all know about it. We don't have to delve too much into that. But in this crisis, I see silver linings and I see opportunity. And I think the way forward will be where MSME 2.0 will be a very much more sharper and efficient sector than MSME 1.0.
And Dr. Sanjeev, if I talk to you right now, first of all, just tell us something about WASME, a brief about WASME, and how does it help in global SMEs development?
We have been already facilitating MSMEs across globe. We have got member representatives in more than 100 countries. We have got the consultative and observer status of the United Nations also, and we are means continuously facilitating MSMEs in develop or in supporting their credit, technology, and market access. So all the three verticals of the business we are closely associated with 15 ministries and all the majority of the government banks like State Bank of India, Canara Bank, and other banks also. We are the means organization giving uh, government in or means supporting government in the policy making. We have already organized various conferences in different countries also. Yes.
Sudhanshu, if I talk about the government's role in MSMEs help, so what it would be on the central level and for the UP government also?
Help that was expected by the government and the semi and the expectation of the industrialists. I'm pretty sure that the government has come up with such a wonderful package and the impetus of say around 3 lakh crores directly to the MSMEs will come in a big way to support the MSMEs and the kind of loans, the kind of helps that the government is going to provide or they are on the verge of providing. Uh, that will be instrumental in uplifting the MSMEs. And I firmly believe that the kind of challenges that the MSMEs are facing today, I perceive that they should snatch it as an opportunity and they should move forward and utilize the kind of package that the government has given to the MSMEs.
Right. We'll talk about it forwardly, but Dr. Roy, if I talk about the ground reality, so what is the situation that you see and observe for the MSMEs on ground?
Yeah, as we all know, that as we speak today on this panel discussion, that there's a 50% of the people who work in MSMEs are now not being paid their salaries. There is a danger of 30% of all MSMEs probably winding up, and another 30% will take another 6 months to have a slow recovery, and the balance probably the recovery will take slightly longer. So the reality on the ground, obviously, post lockdown is quite grim, and businesses have issues of liquidity and solvency where cash flows are affected as receivables have yet to be paid to them. There are fixed costs which MSMEs have to bear, which is 15 to 25%. And so I think going forward is that somehow they have to have access to liquidity, which will help them to tide over the short term problem of how to manage cash flow when their receivables are slow. And secondly, is a question of solvency so that they don't go out of business and they can exploit new opportunities and get some equity infusion or other forms of infusion of funds into the company so they can scale out and then pick up the orders as and when the economy bounces back. So, yes, it is fairly grim, but MSMEs in India have been structurally strong. The data shows they have low leverage and high liquidity. So those firms will certainly move forward. But 90% of MSMEs don't have access to liquidity and to credit and loan. And that is where we all need to watch out to see how we can give a boost to that particular segment of the MSME sector.
What my question is to Mr. Joshi. Mr. Joshi, Dr. Roy told us the condition, the reality on the ground. Can we ask you a question like what are the sectors those are mostly affected by this lockdown and what are their conditions?
Well, I think at a very macro level, you can divide the economy. One is agriculture, then you have industry, and then you have services. So agriculture is expected to perform reasonably well this year because the dynamics of agriculture are somewhat different from industry and services, and it doesn't get impacted by COVID-19 directly. Now, coming to industry and services, I think the both these sectors are taking a deep hit, and the services sector particularly is taking a much deeper hit than industry, and will also take more time to revive. When I say services, I think if you look at things like airline industry or you look at restaurant, hotels, and stuff like that, I think all those are going to suffer not only damage right now, but also going ahead because there will be a behavioral change. I think so. It will take a long time for them to revert back. Now, in terms of if you want to look at sectors which are which are expected to do comparatively better this year, I think I would include pharmaceuticals there, telecom, fertilizer sector, which feeds into agriculture, food products, I think agrochemicals, for that matter, FMCG. I think these are the relatively better sectors. I think sectors like automobile, etc., they are suffering a deep hit. So I think from an MSME perspective, it is not only the MSMEs which are working on their own, but I think they get impacted due to B2B linkages with these large companies. I think if the rest of the economy is not doing well, I think that also flows directly into their working. So it's, I think an export is also hitting the MSME segment particularly badly, because if you look at the structure of our exports, the exports that have suffered the most in the month of April, for which we have the most recent data, I think it is things like gems and jewelry or leather and leather products. I think these have the exports have fallen by almost 99%. So clearly, I think the external segment, external economy, as well as the domestic dynamics are hurting the MSME segment, which is the most vulnerable among the industry because they don't have buffers like the larger corporates.
Exactly. And Dr. Sanjeev, here your role and your participation becomes very important. So my question to you is, like, what WASME will help Indian MSMEs to develop and to revive and to come up strongly after this pandemic and this COVID-19 situation?
As I as I have told you, three verticals of any business. One is the credit, another is the technology, another is the market. Whenever we are just talking about the credit, fixed capital and the working capital, for manufacturing, robotics, automation, 3D technology, for services, IoT, blockchain, AI, RL, and export from local market, regional, national, and international market. So we have been already supporting MSMEs in all the three verticals of business. It has already impacted in their credit, as well as the technology, as well as the market. They are not accessible to the market. There is a shortage of the working capital and all. As other panelists, Dr. Joshi and Mr. Praveen and Mr. Sudhanshu, they have already pointed out all these three. So these are the basic issues. And here the WASME's role, World Association for Small and Medium Enterprises, and we are into the market for the last 40 years. Have been already supporting in all the three verticals of the business. We are associated with all the major banks, so that the MSMEs can get loans and other things, and all the schemes they can be already getting available. Again, the technology, how to revive their business, or how to scale up their business by adding technology. Recently, I can just give you one example of one dhaba. We have implemented IoT in that, and with that IoT technology, they have scaled their business in three places. One dhaba, they were just having the problem of wastage of material over there. So they bought some freezer, added some barcoding, and used IoT technology, and they have scaled their business three different places by minimizing the extra salary of one person who was just taking care of all these things. Whenever a customer wants to have any kind of food, so they used to order online. They used to visit to a freezer, means a place where the food was there. Used barcoding, get the food and get it. So this was the one of the technology. We have been already associated with various agencies, various universities, and all, an incubation center. So we are just supporting them so that they can scale up their business of market. We are into the more than 100 countries. So means their export and other things are there. Our president is from Nigeria. We have got four vice presidents from Bangladesh, Nepal, Nigeria, and India. So and member representatives in more than 100 countries. So whenever there are means any kind of requirement, we used to connect. This is our role.
These are some solution and planning from the side of WASME. But if I talk about government, Mr. Siddhanshu, there are some slogans like being Atmanirbhar, being self-dependent. So how does it work for the ground and for MSMEs? How it will work? What is the planning for government, from the government side to the MSMEs, to being self-dependent, being Atmanirbhar? How does it work?
We'll have to understand the entire impact of COVID on the world economy and the Indian economy. For that, we'll have to understand the basic impact of COVID. As we find that supply chains have been broken. That is the basic issue which underlines the entire debate. First of all, there could be local value supply chains. Secondly, there could be regional value supply chains. Thirdly, there could be global value supply chains. Now, as we see in the international realm, we'll find that the global value supply chains have been broken, but the regional value supply chains and the local value supply chains, they have remained. What we basically need to do is that India as a country, we have to ensure that the regional value supply chains and the local value supply chains, they remain intact. And the government has been providing various impetus in the form of soft loans, in the form of subsidized loans, in the form of various facilities being provided to the MSMEs. Secondly, we'll have to analyze the entire phenomenon in three different ways. First of all, we'll have to agree that there has been a decline in trade. Second, the trade has shrunk by around 13 to 33%. Number two, the GDP the world over is deemed to fall from 1.2% to 7.2%. Now, what are the basic support levels that India has or the MSMEs in India have? We can basically divert the global supply chains as an advantage to the domestic production. So, as we see that Australia, US, Mexico, and many other countries are not in favor of dependence on countries like China. So, there is a larger possibility of shift in trade from China and such countries to India. What will be the impact of that? It will result into a major manufacturing hub. And India has the potential to replace China as one of the largest manufacturing hubs. Secondly, if we are able to base out the production of other industries from China, that is a big opportunity for India. And as all of us know, that there are around 1,000 companies which are directly in discussion with the government of India or the state governments where they are planning to set up their production in India. Now, this will be a major game changer of COVID in terms of the total world economy and especially for India. Thirdly, the kind of stimulus package of 20 lakh crores that the government has given, it has the power to bounce back the economy. And the V-shaped recovery, the vertical recovery, which was always inherent as we have seen it in the past also, we find that there is a larger possibility for the Indian economy to revive. Initially, we find that the investors, they were finding cheap labor in China. There were larger special economic zones. There were better pricing of inputs. The infrastructure was better available in China. However, this has reached a saturation point basically in China. Now, this is an opportunity for India because now they are into a state of higher cost of production. So this is an opportunity for India that we can move in. And last but not least, the lack of transparency checks such related issues in China, they are a country for India. And last but not the least, I want to say this that India is the fifth largest economy in the world. Look at our advantages. We are the fifth largest economy. We have abundant labor force. We have age median of 27. Age median of 27. The working age population is around 900 million. What we need to do is that we need to create a conducive and favorable business environment. And what are the basic ingredients that are required here? First of all, we need to have a little market reforms. Second, the infrastructure support. Third, the logistics. Fourth, the trade facilities. Fifth, the reduction in the transaction cost. And last but not the least, the redesigning of the special economic zones for better performance.
Mr. Roy, my next question to you is, do you think that MSMEs can play a dominant role in the recovery of Indian economy? If yes, then how?
Answer is absolutely yes. And the reason I say that is because SMEs are about 30% of your GDP, 50% of your exports, 45% manufacturing output is from MSMEs. More so, 110 million people depend on their jobs on the MSME sector. And as Dr. Joshi would tell you, that you need a demand side push. And the demand side push is if these migrant labor and workers spend money, therefore companies can produce, and therefore the supply chain can get lubricated, and then we are on a way to the recovery. Now, I don't know the shape of the recovery might take, but um, there is no doubt that this time around, if agriculture has been helping us in the past, this is a unique opportunity for MSMEs to take leadership and hope to drive the industry and services part of the economy, the formal sector, the mid-informal sector, so that the GDP drops that all economies are expecting, they'll be getting a healthy surprise if the MSMEs are able to bootstrap themselves and make use of all these opportunities that have been given by the government to solve their liquidity issues, solve their solvency issues, shift from asset funding to cash flow based financing, reclassification of the MSME sectors so that 90% of all MSMEs are technically eligible for all these goodies and loans, and last but not least, removal of the export, removal of you have to the export orders have been removed from the revenues of MSME, so that makes them more eligible to get the loans. And now, or of size of orders of 200 crores, you can't do a global tender. You have to look for those products internally within your own country, and who else is there better than the MSMEs to go and try and capture this sub 200 crore export market, which was earlier going to other parts of the world. So I think some opportunities have been laid out by the government, but obviously government by themselves can't do everything, can't do the heavy lifting. I expect private sector to also jump in. For example, Dr. Sanjeev mentioned technology. So I think fintech companies do have a real great role to play in this by giving credit to the companies which have no access to financial systems and institutions, which is 90%. Give quick, small value credit to many of these organizations in the sub 5 crore turnover or sub 1 crore turnover segment. And I think the sector has been by and large starved of credit and has only had to depend on banks and NBFCs. Now, they will only be able to do so much. The balance, heavy lifting has to be done by fintech companies along with their partners who might be NBFCs, or fintech companies who are NBFCs and have a healthy balance sheet. So going forward, if there are 65 million MSMEs, only 10, 12, 13 million have access to formal credit. The balance don't have it. So I think fintech someone has a very key role to play in this, and I hope this role of fintech disrupts the way that MSMEs have been getting credit and getting growth capital. And this is the opportunity, frankly, if you ask me, that they will If they get access to this credit, the 90% or the large part of the people who didn't, plus the new entrepreneurs, if they also mobilize venture capital, high net worth individual, angel investors, private equity funds, you will find this whole sector, not only micro, small, medium, but nano industries, sub 1 crore turnover, they also will find a lot of, they might be the long tail of this, and they'll find the opportunity, and you find a lot of employment and entrepreneurship generation through this model of use of technology and fintech.
Roy, there will be a very important question about the entrepreneurship in India. Those people, those are struggling and they also started. So what COVID-19 situation will land for them? I'll ask that question to you later. But my next question to Mr. Joshi. Mr. Joshi, Mr. Roy mentioned about the shape of recovery. So what sort of a shape of recovery you see for India?
Well, I think the economists will not decide the shape of recovery. It is the virus, I think, that will decide, as Dr. Fauci had pointed out in US. So it depends on whether I think what we have assumed right now for looking at India is that we will have a resolution to this crisis, to this COVID-19 medical resolution by mid of 21, which is a vaccine. Before that, I think what we are assuming for making a forecast is that the COVID curve will peak out in the July-September quarter, early part of July-September. I think the latest signals from the epidemiologists are that I think mid-July should see the peaking out of it. Earlier it was May. Now I think if that happens and if there is no second wave, then I think what you are looking at is you're looking at negative GDP growth for first 2 quarters of this year, and then gradually becoming positive by the third quarter and gaining some strength by the fourth quarter. Right now, I would say that the growth is falling, and then I think it will stay there for some time in the weak zone, which I think it's a hybrid between a V and a U. And then I think next year, provided we get ample support, I think, and provided the virus is under control, we should see around 8% GDP growth. That's what we are projecting right now. And I think so it all depends on how the containment measures proceed, how the virus plays out going ahead. I think that will define the shape of recovery. As of now, we do see, I think we do see growth troughing at a lower level before it begins to ascend.
For this situation, when we are talking about the crisis and opportunities, how MSMEs can find their opportunity in this situation, it can be like assume if an international brand, a TV brand, we are providing, the MSMEs are providing 5 different MSMEs, providing different parts, different technology to that TV brand that is internationally renowned. But the work after that is of MSMEs, but MSMEs are not getting their credit. So this is the time that where we can come under an umbrella and we can by ourselves, we can make our brand and we can get renowned internationally. And I guess this is the opportunity that our government and our country is talking about. So can we expect that in this situation?
Yes, Honorable Prime Minister has already cited one local for vocal, and this will be the opportunity for all the MSMEs here. Now, if you're talking about the TV brand, if you are just talking about all the parts of a TV, so lots of parts are there. So they can be locally sourced, they can be assembled here in India, and for the world, this may be possible. Whenever you are talking about automobile sector, one car uh, means is having two key components. So only Maruti, if you are just talking about the Maruti, they only manufacture the engine. And what about the 249 parts? So the MSMEs are the backbone of that. They are supporting Maruti in getting the final product over there. So this is the opportunity for Indian MSMEs, because China has already got some derailed over there, the bad image in the world, and all the American countries, all the developed countries, they are just boycotting or they are neglecting Chinese economy over there. And then in India, means major people, they are just boycotting Chinese products over here. And this is an opportunity for Indian MSMEs, so they can be the local brand, they can be made available for the world. And we are here, WASME is here. We are having the connections or network in more than 100 countries. So we can support them in making their brands available in different markets. Now you know better that artisans, they are very good. They are having very good products over there, but they do not have to Europe or any other country. Indian products are available, but they limited connections over there. Very limited means a network to sell their products over there. But in this crisis, they have the opportunity to make their local brand global brand. I had the opportunity to meet Mr. Piyush Goyal, Industry and Commerce Minister. I had raised three issues with him regarding MSME sector. One of the major issues was the marketing issue. Second was the hand holding and the credit facility over here. And in this budget, 2020 budget, they have also included that all the three points over there, and they have made one district for one product so that they can be made available to the world. So they have also allocated some budget for that. So this is the opportunity for MSMEs over here. If you are just talking about Gautam Budh Nagar, Noida, they have got the apparel brand over there. So this apparel, one product, one district, one product, ODOP, they can be promoted to the rest of the world. This is the way they can be the global brand.
Mr. Roy, my question to you is like you were talking about the entrepreneurship. So what do you think about those people, those already started their projects, and right now this is a very hard and struggling time for them? And how would you encourage the next entrepreneur in the industry? How would they help the economy?
That's a great question, Anu. Winston Churchill was famous to have said that never waste a good crisis. So I think in any crisis, there's always an opportunity. There's a silver lining. So this is a good opportunity for entrepreneurs not to get fearful or negative, but for them to take risks and to be bold and not to give up their projects so easily in the face of this crisis. It is a big crisis of the kind that we have not seen, I know, in all our lifetimes, 100 years. But this is not for the faint hearted. If you're an entrepreneur, first quality you will have is you can't be faint hearted. Second quality you will need to build up is you need to be resilient. Third quality you will need to have is to be bold and not fearful. And I think this will actually test the real entrepreneurs who take this as an opportunity, do not lose faith, and use this opportunity to not only rethink their model, reinvent themselves, or to look at new opportunities if they're doing something else. So we are seeing it in day to day life that now the new sector which has come up in the last 1 month is medical textiles, where companies are now making PPE equipment. A hiking company or an adventure company is not making bags and backpack and shoes, but is making PPE equipment. Liquor companies are making disinfectant and sanitizers. E-commerce companies are moving from delivery at home to remote delivery and contactless. So how people are immediately shifting and pivoting and grabbing their opportunity and defining them or differentiating themselves from others. As we speak, we are getting so many messages and ideas are coming from others that we are now doing this as versus what we were doing earlier. And then you have your Zooms of the world and who are suddenly flying high because nobody expected them to be so popular ever, when many other people have been there in this business far longer than them and even larger companies. So yes, entrepreneurs, if you are listening and you are very much part of the MSME sector, and this is a great time for you to reinvent and grab the opportunities. and you will have access to funds not only from the established financial institutions like banks, public sector banks, private banks, NBFCs, but also hopefully from venture capital, private equity, and maybe large manufacturers and industrial companies who you feed them as ancillary industry, and then they will hopefully give you orders and credit so that you can take the opportunities and do something for them. So I think it's a multi-track process for not only a small industries but also for entrepreneurs. Actually, this is a big opportunity and platform for entrepreneurs to step up to the plate and define the MSME sector. And Dr. Sanjeev would have told you earlier that in the world, 90% of GDP of some countries and is from, and 50% employed plus is from MSME sectors. Even USA has got 45% contribution of MSME sector to GDP. So Nehru said on the after independence that the public sector will be the commanding heights of the economy. But I think tomorrow going forward, the commanding heights of the economy will be driven by the MSME sector. And as Sudhanshu said, and others of you yourself have alluded to, is that we always used to think that if you're in India, you have to think global but act local. And this nara of be vocal on local very much fits into that. This is an opportunity and we have to grab it with both our hands, and I hope the government supports this program going forward, and organizations like WASME and Sudhanshu's organization and analysis across India see the opportunity here, and hopefully in the next 10 years MSME will play as big a role as agriculture plays today in today's Indian economy.
Exactly. And just because that we are short with the time, I would take a leave from both of you. But I would say thank you very much for taking time for us, and to Sudhanshu ji also. This has been a very wonderful talk, and we hope that we'll find some ways after here, because as we know, we Indians can turn opportunities, any opportunity as bigger as the other country can do and other people can do. And I hope this situation is all for the world, but we Indians have the capability to turn crisis into opportunity, and this is what we are looking forward. So thank you very much for joining us. So this was all for this discussion. No one can deny that COVID-19 pandemic has left its impact on all sectors of the economy. But nowhere is the hurt as much as the medium, small and micro enterprises of India. We'll hope that this crash can soon turn into an opportunity and India can win once again. Thank you very much for joining us.